Hey, this is Sky. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Let's just tell some stories. It's a Sunday night. I was thinking about this scenario earlier, and I was talking with a friend, so I figured I would make a video out of it. And I hope I didn't tell this already in one of my videos. If you're new to the channel, I have almost 600 videos now. I tell stories about my life. I've lived kind of a crazy life, but I also spit a lot of game and try to lace people up with mind, body, and soul, lifestyle management, programming. I do coaching. You can contact me if you want some individual help. It was 1990. I was a year out of high school. I graduated high school in 1989 in Washington, D.C. D.C. in 1989 was a war zone. Our mayor, Marion Barry, was a crackhead mayor. You can look this shit up if anybody my age remembers Marion Barry. He was the one who they caught him on videotape smoking crack, big fucking boulders of crack with a prostitute next to him. They're just partying. They had the whole thing on video, and he gets busted, does like 6 months in jail, federal fucking jail at some kind of summer camp, gets out, runs for mayor again and fucking win. The city was on fire. 89, the city was on fire. Fucking drug dealers were at war with the cops, like for real. Machine guns, all that kind of stuff. The local police, the DC police, gave up. They went on TV and said, we can't handle this shit. This is guerrilla warfare on like a third world level. We're just fucking cops being paid. Back then they were probably being paid 15 grand a year, like nothing. And you know, they just said, we're quitting, you know, we're gonna walk off the job. We're not doing this. So they brought in the National Guard, and the fucking neighborhoods in DC, the bad neighborhoods, were then all of a sudden patrolled by stormtroopers, armored fucking vehicles and soldiers. It was a whole nother level. And the National Guard, I'm not trying to badmouth military. The National Guard didn't do shit. You think, well, the army came in, kicked these drug dealers' ass. No, that is not how it happened. Go ask anybody who was there. The fucking National Guard were outgunned, outnumbered and outgunned. That was right around the time I left DC. And I was wrapped up into the war on drugs in DC. I was involved in all kinds of criminal activity, and it was getting worse and worse. The city was blowing up. I was getting more and heavy into shit, and it was time to bounce. It was the pot was ready to boil over on that fucking place. All I could do was get out with my life. And I felt like I had to chew my arm off to leave. I had this girlfriend, she didn't want to go. I was just like, fuck you, then you stay. I remember she's crying on the curb as I'm in my van, and I was just like, you're gonna stay or you're gonna go? And you know, she got in the van, we drove out to California. We landed in Santa Barbara, got ourselves a little apartment out in Isla Vista, right near the college, UCSB, University of California, Santa Barbara. And in Isla Vista, it's a little bit north of Santa Barbara, one or so exit on the highway, all the same fucking area though. Isla Vista is party town, USA. It's full of college kids, and it's a massive university. Thousands, tens of thousands of college kids, and some of them live on campus, but most of them just live in the neighborhood. Pretty much any house in the neighborhood is gonna be college kids, and they're having keg parties 3-4 nights a week. The place is party central. People go crazy there. And there's a lot of wealth there. The millionaires in California send their little dumb shit kids to join a frat and to party it up for 4 years at UCSB. I don't think it's a very good education. You know, nobody's going to that school and bragging about it. But they got a lot of gangs there. They got a lot of drugs there. These kids party a lot. They got to get that shit from somewhere. So there's a lot of competition from the fucking Crips, the Mexicans, the Colombians were there. Colombian cartel were there. I ran into those guys, dealt with them on 2 occasions. They're scary motherfuckers. They had a bunch of different gangs of every race, had gangs. I hung out when I first got there with the hippies. And back in those days, the hippies had their own scene. It's not, I don't think there's anything like it now, but it was still left over from the 60s and the 70s. What was driving the hippie scene was the Grateful Dead concerts. And the Grateful Dead toured year-round, 365 days a year, always going around the country, touring, going to a different concert every weekend, and their fan base would follow them. And the parking lot scene at the Grateful Dead shows was called the Market. The parking lot at the fucking concert would be a 3-day drug fest. I've been to so many of those parking lots, never even go inside. I wasn't a hippie. I didn't give a fuck about Grateful Dead and Jerry Garcia. I just came here for the drugs. And the drug scene with the hippies was strong. Anything you want, anything you can imagine, the best of it. These guys were major dealers, millionaire dealers. He shows up with these big fucking buses in RVs, and they had they called them like major players. There was like a term for them. And everybody's trying to suck off them in that scene. The only reason why I liked that hippie scene was because I could do a lot of business with them, drug business. And I was just a hustler. I had joined gangs when I was 10. My first gang that I got jumped into, a legit organized gang, was 10 years old. So I was always looking for opportunities my whole life. The hippies were always a good opportunity. And Santa Barbara had a huge hippie scene. Right on the edge of the hippie scene were these fucking Rastafarians, this whole house full of them. The hippies hung out in a certain area in Isla Vista, right near the Red Barn, Estero Road. They parked all their vehicles. You'd see school buses for as far as you can see. There'd be hippie buses, hippies camping out in tents. The hippies would just take over. And right on the edge of that was an apartment full of Jamaicans. Some of them had dreadlocks and were doing the Rastafarian thing, but a lot of them were just islanders, and they were a subset of the Jamaican cartel. They were a Jamaican posse. The Jamaican posses were big in the 80s. The leader always sat out front on this little stool. Much older guy. And he had a nickname, they called him Mystery. But his real name was Reggie. He called me over one day, just wanted to check me out. I seen you around. What's up with you? You're not some homeless hippie like the rest of these guys, but you hang out with them. And I said, yeah. We start talking. And he was like, look, you know what we got going on here. And I was rather naive, and I said, no. And he's like, well, we're the posse. And I was like, what's that? So he explains it to me, and he's like, we're running the drugs around here. The Mexicans run it up there, but we got all this. And he's like, we can't figure out how to sell to those fucking hippies. They don't come near us. They stay over there all day long, and they never come over here. So I was like, oh, well, I know all of them. And I made the connection with them, and they were in love. It was like a love affair between the Jamaicans and the hippies. They loved each other. And from that moment on, Reggie kind of adopted me. He mentored me. And this guy had an amazing amount of experience. I could make a whole video and talk for an hour just about this guy's resume. It's really crazy shit, from a soldier in like a mercenary army in Guatemala to, you know, robbing drug dealers with shotguns and ski masks in Oakland, and all kinds of stuff. He was a hardcore individual and a businessman. He dealt with the Colombians directly. The Colombian fucking boss would come over, and he was a scary son of a bitch. People would keep their mouth shut when he would walk through and just sit there and look at him. The fucking Colombians were scary. Everybody warned me one day of this guy Rodney. Rodney's getting out of the joint. You just watch out for Rodney. Okay, and I was told this multiple times over the course of a day. Just watch out for him. You never met him. Rodney's kind of excitable and intense, and he's kind of hard to deal with. Just be careful around him. I didn't know what that meant. It's kind of a vague warning. So my imagination is going. Rodney shows up like the next day. It was like a Friday or something. Rodney didn't last long. I'm going to tell you about Rodney. He was straight up prison boy. He had done an extended amount of time, I think around 10 years, I don't know what, close to 10 years, maybe a little more, but only the older guys knew who he was. Rodney was jacked, steroid goon, professional bodybuilder, huge, a monster. And he would just without even flexing, just standing there, his veins would just be pulsating. Phenomenal shape, tall, just ripped. It looked like he was, you know, like on the Dallas Cowboys or something. I mean, the guy was amazing. And he was not just intense. He wasn't just at a 10. He was at 15. He was just too energetic, like he was on coke or something. That's what I thought. And he was a straight up dick. He would fuck with you. And he had this kind of prison mentality of prison politics and daily programming of wake up at 3 a.m. and push-ups and let's all do, live a certain way. But the prison is different than the streets. And he may have been a shot caller in whatever prison he was at, at Folsom or whatever he was at. It doesn't mean anything on the streets. It's two different worlds. And guys that go to prison, they don't understand that when they get out, it's different on the outside. You play a different role when you get on the outside. This is within the gang world. Rodney was running his fucking mouth all weekend, annoying people. People would just straight up walk away from him, and he would just be parading around, flexing his muscles, kind of just right up in people's faces, really giving them shit about various stuff and getting all angry about prison politics and all. And nobody wanted to hear it. Especially Reggie. Reggie told him a couple times, shut up, in front of us, which embarrassed him. He pulled him aside on one occasion, and I'm assuming he had a heart-to-heart with him and was just like, dude, nobody is getting this vibe of yours. You have to bring it way down. This isn't prison anymore. You're on the outside now. But we're all sitting around on a Sunday. That Sunday, Rodney didn't last long. And we're making red snapper on the stove and had fresh vegetables steaming, and we're making a good meal. We make good meals all the time. We ate good. I loved how these guys ate. They ate healthy too. And Rodney's over there. Oh, Reggie's rolling a joint. Big fat joint. He's got like almost near a quarter ounce rolled up in fucking these cigar papers. Big fucking, like a goddamn telephone pole. And that's how these guys like to smoke out. They would roll these big joints all day long. And I would tell them, I don't know how much money that is. We don't need to smoke a joint that big. That's a $100 joint. What the fuck's wrong with you? But whatever. It's their shit. I don't say nothing. And then Reggie's rolling a joint. Rodney's running his mouth. Just talking all his shit. Strutting around, flexing his muscles, being himself. Out of nowhere, Reggie puts the joint down, finishes rolling it, and he's slobbered it all up, so he's got to let it dry. Fucking disgusting. Pulls out this long machete, a big long black machete, and he looked like he had been sharpening the edge because the edge just glistened. And he gets up, goes running after, right towards Rodney. Rodney seemed to know what time it was, and he's an athlete. He jumped into action. He opens the door, goes flying outside. Reggie goes flying after him with the fucking machete. We're all like, what the hell? Start laughing. We're all laughing because it's just funny, and we're all high. He chases him across the street. We watch Reggie swipe at him, and he doesn't fucking get him, but he's close. I mean, real close. And it's going to split him open. That's a big, sharp machete. It's going to open him up like a fucking can of worms. He's just going to, it's going to be bad when he hits him with that. And he takes a couple swipes. They run into a field across the street, and we're just rolling. We're looking out the front door, and people are kind of going onto the front porch. They're across the street in this open field. And people would walk their dogs and shit in the field. And they're just running around the field real fast. These guys are in great shape. And the only thing that saved fucking Rodney from getting split open was the fact that he was in phenomenal physical condition. And Reggie's just swiping at him, and Rodney's still running his mouth the whole time. I mean, you can hear him just saying whatever he's talking about, and it was so funny. We're dying in tears, just laughing. And Reggie chases him long ways across the field. Not back towards the apartment, but towards the other block. And almost gets him, takes one last swipe, and Rodney jumps out into the street on the next block and runs down the block. And we could kind of see him. He was just running. Just like a dog that had been let out. He was just running and running and running. I bet you he ran all the way across Santa Barbara. My little love affair with these Jamaicans ended when we all got busted. We got raided by the sheriff's gang task force, the Green Team, and they arrested us all in a raid. We had lookouts on the block, and they weren't doing their job, or they were in on it. Who knows? They were snitches, who knows? And we got taken down, paddy wagons, the whole thing. And once we got into the system, it all fell apart. The system's racial. As soon as we got to jail, we all went our separate ways. Thanks for watching.